This is Doug Edge, who is an artist from the Los Angeles area. However, are you a farm boy? You're from Wisconsin.
I was born on a farm.
Yeah?
I wasn't born in a hospital. I was born on a farm. It was my grandfather's farm, and my father went off to the war, and my mother moved in there with, you know, us two small children.
Must have been great for a kid growing up to
Well,
be
I
on
didn't
a
grow
farm.
up on the farm. When my dad came back, we moved to Colorado and eventually moved out here. So,
So was it on the farm? Where did you get the inspiration to be an artist?
well, it was funny because I was, my dad is a mechanic, and they came out here so that both of my sister and I could both go to college, and so they always thought, you know, he kind of directed me, you know, because I was real mechanical. I worked with my father. I did engine jobs with him. I'd go to work with him during the summer from the time I was 11 years old until when I was 16. I could do you know, my own engine job. And so the combination of that and my mathematics background, which I was good at mathematics in school, was he said, well, of course you'll be a mechanical engineer. So that's what I went to college for. But I didn't know art existed. We never went to a gallery. We never went to a museum. I never met an artist. I literally didn't know it existed. We had this one painting. It was a reproduction of a painting in the living room. My folks still have it, called the Southern Belle. And I was always intrigued with that when I was a little kid, because you know how the eyes follow you around the room? And you know, I'd kind of go one way and she'd be looking at me, I'd go around to the other side of the room and she'd be looking at me. So I was in engineering classes at Valley State College, which is now Northridge, and every day from the parking lot to the engineering building, I would pass by the art building. And there was this kid out there that was like welding steel together, and he later became a friend of mine, Tom McBride. And I was so intrigued with that. You know, I'm in there taking, you know, lectures on, you know, physics and chemistry, really dry, it's really boring and everything. And here's this kid out there welding these big pieces of steel together. And so I decided that I would take a drawing class and with my engineering classes, and it turned out that I loved it and I did really well with it. And then I switched my major, much to the chagrin of my folks, especially my dad. And but I just decided that this is, you know, this really makes me happy. This is what I'm going. And also, I didn't feel like I was that good at anything. You know, all of a sudden I can draw better than anybody in the class. I'm actually good at this. I'm good at something in my life, you know. So I never looked back. I was 19 years old, discovered art, and I met John Romaine about that time. We had ceramics class together, and we were two of the like 4 or 5 people that would actually stay all night in the ceramics class throwing pots. The rest of the kids would just come to class and work on their things. Well, we were just totally into it. We would just stay on.
Doug, when was this? What year, approximately?
62, 63. He was working at the Dwan Gallery. And so he asked me if I would like to come and, you know, stuff envelopes and help set up shows. And I said, sure. So I met Rosenquist. I met Ed Keenholz, and who else did I meet? Larry Rivers.
Larry Rivers, Nikki DeSantal, Jean Tingley.
Thank you.
Yves Klein.
Yep. I didn't meet Yves Klein. I wish I would have.
Yeah.
And also Smithson, and so it was just this fabulous education, although I didn't understand what they were doing at all, because it was totally different from what I was learning in school.
A different way of thinking.
Yeah, well, I was learning kind of like kind of a warmed over Picasso kind of thing via Rico Lebrun kind of drawing.
Or Southern Belle.
Yeah, well, Southern Belle was, I didn't, you know, that was just magic, you know. And so that was the beginning. And so I graduated from college and got married and went to work at Art Services, and then met all the LA faction, Billy L. Bankston and Larry Bell, you know, driving a truck over to their studios. And They're very, very nice people. And the two people that really influenced me the most were Wallace Berman and John Altoon. They were the most soulful of all the people that I knew. They kind of took me under their wing in a way, and were very, very nice to me, very kind to me. And I kind of learned this thing about integrity from them, I think, and also from Ed, but I didn't really know Ed that well.
This is Ed Keenholz.
Yes, Ed Keenholz, yeah. And so that just kind of, you know, filtered into my thinking. And so making art was always like, it was like something that was really, what's the word, kind of a magical thing. It wasn't a means to make money for me. It was more about like being a true artist and being creative and expressing myself and all that stuff, which I found out, and I thought that was, you know, what you're supposed to do. But what I found out was, as I started developing these prototypes, the art world said, no, 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 you can't do this. You know, I changed a couple of times, and the art world and the galleries kind of went along with me, and then the third time, I lost them, I never got them back. And so I've just worked these last 30 years kind of on my own, and once in a while I get a show, and I show what I'm working on at the time, and that's it.
You mentioned the word prototype.
I was thinking a prototype in the way of kind of a philosophical prototype. I had this idea of using a common object with a new material and making a social comment. So this bench in particular is, it's three elements of life. It's earth, seed, and water, waiting at the bus stop. And actually, if it was hit by a bus, it would grow. It would become life. So, you know, I mean, that was kind of, to me, I've just come up with this recently, but this is like a kind of a prototype of making art. And I would do this certain kind of art making until an idea didn't just come to me, and, you know, there was a clever idea that I could do. But I always thought, no, I can't do a clever idea. I've got to do something I really believe in. This Pure Air Hope Chest was the next phase, where I actually, the bench was fabricated for me. I drew up the plans and I had it fabricated. The Hope Chest I made myself. I kind of went from having it fabricated to making it myself. So that was the next prototype.
Around your studio here are works which are actually all very different.
Yes.
And one of the things you talked about is your change of periods.
Yes.
What brings on a change of style or period for you?
Well, it's just, it either becomes boring, or like for example, the one behind me, which is actually a more recent kind of prototype. I got bored with doing it because it's the same mold over and over and over and over and over again, and I did several pieces, and I got tired of using the same exact surface.
Okay, you say that the molds are the same, so each one of those hundreds of little sculptures, in a way, are they part of the mold, or do you set those in?
Yes, they're all
That's
part of the mold.
all part of the mold. My goodness.
So each of these four, it's made up of 4 panels, the same mold, 4 times. And to actually cast one of those panels takes 8 hours, and you cannot stop. Because if you stop, the resin shrinks, what you've already cast into the mold shrinks, and then the next, you go off to lunch or something, then you come back and it's inside the little mold that's shrunk, and then the next level you pour in is just going to run down and ruin the striation. So you have to keep going. And people ask me, how'd you do it? And I'd say, well, I don't know, the angels did it for me, because once you have 2 or 3 levels inside each of these thorns, one has no idea what's down there anymore. And so you're just winging it after the first 2 or 3. You don't want to put the same color in on top of the one on top. So I did this in 4 days, and after 4 days I felt like somebody had given me a severe beating.
So that the color is also cast in.
Yes, it's mixed
It's not
into the
painted afterwards.
no.
That's remarkable. What about like within there's like shark's teeth or a finger?
Seashells.
Yeah, all of that stuff. So that's all cast in and not so.
Yeah, it's all in
there's
the
no
mold.
collage about it.
No. No,
Or
it's all
mixed
cast
media.
in. Yeah.
So it's not mixed media. It's
It's cast resin. Yeah. This piece here is called the Queen Anne Black Widow spider chair. My first wife is named Anne, and we had kind of a tough kind of breakup and everything. 26-year marriage.
I remember her.
And I was very angry about it, and so I made some angry pieces. And now I'm a very happy camper, and so I make happy pieces.
That's great.
Even in the face of kind of what's going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I like that story about Vermeer, that he made all those paintings during the 100 Years' War. And the paintings show so many times a woman standing at the window or by herself, and she's really pining away for her man, or she's doing needlepoint or whatever. And he was making paintings that were kind of in reaction to that. He was trying to create a beautiful place in this world that was turned upside down. And I like that idea.
What about the lady over on the wall over there?
Yeah, this was also in that period during the breakup, and I see this now in retrospect, but what I was dealing with then was this idea of history, where this painting was painted by Anthony van Eyck. This is Queen Henrietta, and when she married the king gave her Sir Geoffrey. This is Sir Geoffrey down here, who was a midget. He was 19 years old at the time. And meanwhile, in the New World, they're enslaving people, they're murdering people, they're destroying civilizations, they're raping the wealth, and so that these people can live high on the hog and have their paintings done. So I wanted to merge the kind of that aspect, this black hole kind of in history, with these paintings. So I gave her bat wings that kind of turned the background into kiting. It's like a kind of curtains on the side and also like bat wings.
Yeah, it's the bat wings, exactly.
Yeah. So I worked in that way for, I guess, 3 years or something. I had a show at the Works Gallery in Long Beach. The way I really like to show these is I like to build the wall out so that the wall is the same surface as the painting. So then the black hole just really is that much more kind of strange. And this piece here is I did the drawing for this when I was when living in Holland, but I couldn't make it till I got back. And this was actually, it was a prop in a theater piece called L'Histoire du Soldat, about the devil trying to buy the soul of the soldier that was coming back from the war. And it was done at the Mermaid Tavern in Topanga. And there was 3 actors, and there was a full group. I think there were 6 musicians that actually played the Stravinsky, and this was going on stage. So anyway, at a certain point in the play, the devil gets the soldier to agree to play cards for his soul. And so the devil comes around, and this piece has just become like just a box on the stage. They're sitting on it, standing on it, doing all this stuff. And so he comes around to the back, and he goes like this, and it was amazing. There was a gasp in the audience.
When did you do the sculpture that is next to Queen Henrietta?
I did Athena in 1985, and she was the 3rd of the large wood mythological characters that are all ladder figures. I did Atlas in the thinker pose, the ladder figure sitting on a staircase in Rodin's thinker pose with the earth on top. And this whole thing came out of the kind of the prototype of using the ladder and staircase as a symbol of growth, of personal growth, going from one level to another level. The other one is Apollo, and he has his head is a Greek lyre, and he's as big as she is. And in the mythology, he invented the lyre. He was the god of music and poetry. And he made the first one out of a turtle shell and cow horns. And so his head is made out of, I carved the cow horns, but I got a turtle shell that one of my son's friends gave me that just was a perfect size. And so I made it this lyre, and I made the strings come down off of the goat horns and go across the bridge of the nose and in through the mouth. And when Alan came up to photograph the piece, this was in 1986 or something, I'd picked out the space to photograph it with a kind of a Renaissance space up in Montecito where there was a really deep landscape that was behind the piece, kind of like the Mona Lisa, how she's up close and then there's this real deep landscape. So we're up there, we got the piece set up, and we're waiting for the light to turn golden, which happens, at sunset or at sunrise. So we're sitting up there, and we smoke some pot, and no one else is up there. And all of a sudden, after we smoke the pot, I hear like there's a radio going or something, and I'm looking around. What is that, Alan? It turns out that the wind is coming up, and it starts. The sculpture starts singing. I've made an Aeolian harp and didn't know it. And it was singing octaves as the wind came up, and as we took the picture, it was just singing away.
When we came in, you said that this is one of your more recent pieces.
So I've been making these container ships for about a year and a half, I think. And the idea of the container ship is, number one, I think I'm the first that's ever painted a container ship. I've never seen another artist that's painted a container ship, and I think they're so important as a symbol of modern day in that everything gets shipped with containers. But it's also, it's a perfect vehicle. The container ship is a perfect vehicle for two kinds of painting. There's the kind of painting that is a window into the world. Anything that's a representation of something else. Then there's abstract painting, which is another kind of worships another god that's all about surface. It doesn't represent anything else. It's all about color and shape, and it only represents itself. But I feel real good about kind of making different gods coexist in the same painting. Art has always just been, my best friend. I feel like it saved my life, and that's why I've never been able to treat it in any kind of mercenary way. I taught for several years in Cal Arts and UCSB and Art Center and Claremont Graduate School was the last place I taught.
Did you ever teach at Otis?
I taught at Otis too, yes. And it was kind of like your job as a teacher is to kind of nurture people, please make a piece, I'd love to see, do this. And it's completely the opposite thing that you run into when you get out, because even your loved ones would just assume you never made another piece in your life and just get down to making some money and paying the bills. And so I thought it was basically dishonest. That's why I kind of got out of teaching, because the schools need the students to come in. They need them to pay like the $30,000 for 2 years and to keep the whole thing going. But I think it's kind of dishonest. And then the galleries skim off the cream, and then the rest of these kids are just kind of, well, go out and get a job. You don't really have an education to get any kind of job where you can make a lot of money, but we want you to pay back this $30,000 now,
Do you think that, throughout your years of teaching, can creativity be taught?
No. Not at all. Yeah, I think You know, Pat Hogan. I took a group of students to Pat Hogan's studio when I was teaching at Art Center, and he said something that I always remembered, and I thought it was so true. He says, "You can't be talked into being an artist, and you can't be talked out of it."
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I miss Pat.
Me too.
Yeah.
He was a great spirit.
Yeah. Well, Doug, thank you very much for spending time with us.
Well, I had a very good time. I was kind of apprehensive about it because I'm not used to talking about this stuff, but you made it very easy. Thank you.
It's good for you. Talk about it. Thanks.
We had this one painting. It was a reproduction of a painting in the living room. My folks still have it, called the Southern Belle. And I was always intrigued with that when I was a little kid, because you know how the eyes follow you around the room, and you know, I'd kind of go one way and she'd be looking at me, I'd go around to the other side of the room and she'd be looking at me. So I was in engineering classes at Valley State College, which is down north. My dad is a mechanic, and they came out here so that both of my sister and I could both go to college, and so they always thought, you know, he kind of directed me, you know, because I was real mechanical. I worked with my father. I did engine jobs with him. I'd go to work with him during the summer from the time I was 11 years old until when I was 16. I could do you know, my own engine. My father went off to the war, and my mother moved in there with, you know, us two small children.
Must have been great for a kid growing up.
Well, I didn't grow up on the farm. When my dad came back, we moved to Colorado and eventually moved out here. So.
So was it on the farm? Where did you get the inspiration to be an artist?
Well, it was funny because I was engine job. And so the combination of that and my mathematics background, which I was good at mathematics in school, was he said, well, of course you'll be a mechanical engineer. So that's what I went to college for. But I didn't know art existed. We never went to a gallery. We never went to a museum. I never met an artist. I literally didn't know it existed.
This is Doug Edge, who is an artist from the Los Angeles area. However, are you a farm boy? You're from Wisconsin.
I was born on a farm.
Yeah?
I wasn't born in a hospital. I was born on a farm. It was my grandfather's farm. And